Thanks for inviting me today to come and talk to everyone about what I call the coolest element on the periodic table. I do that because, of course, helium does hold a very unique position on the periodic table. It has the lowest boiling point of any element, and it has a number of other really unique properties which are critical to a number of industries, including the space industry. The first is it's a very lightweight product, one of the lightest elements on the periodic table. Only hydrogen is lighter. And it's also inert, unlike hydrogen, which is not inert. Helium is inert, which makes it completely useful and being used in many of the applications that are tied to it, including those that are associated with space. It also has an extremely small atomic diameter, which makes it particularly suitable for leak testing. And all of these characteristics are things that are very important to the space business. So helium is used primarily in rocketry for leak testing to make sure that every connection is tight before you launch. This is obviously a critical feature of a rocket, is that you don't want leaking gases coming out at the wrong time. That tends to cause problems. Second of all, a lot of helium is loaded on board the rocket, and as the rocket proceeds upwards, the fuel is consumed from the tanks, either the oxidizer or the fuel tank. Those tanks have to be filled with something that causes back pressure. If you suck all the product out of the tank, like emptying a beer can or a Coke can, that can will collapse. This would be very detrimental to your rocket. So people who design rockets use helium to backfill the tanks to maintain the pressure in the tank so that you can keep pushing the fuel out or the oxidizer out and maintain the pressure so that the internal pressure of the tank keeps it from collapsing. This is another major application that helium is used for in the industry. No rocket is launched without loading helium on board. I don't think anyone uses anything other than that. But it's also used for some other very interesting applications in space. Deep space probes, for instance, and other applications similar to that use helium for thermal conductivity purposes. The thermal conductivity of helium is quite high, and so it's used as a coolant to keep instruments on board cool. I know that sounds weird when you think that space is at a temperature of 4 Kelvin, plus or minus 4 Kelvin. But when the surface of the probe or the device is exposed to the sunlight, it actually heats up to quite a high temperature. And that means that if there are electronics involved behind, just underneath that surface, they have to be cooled. And helium is used for that application because of the high thermal conductivity of the product. So this is yet another application associated with the use of helium. It truly is the coolest element on the periodic table. In terms of volumes in that business, because the activity associated with spaceflight has been increasing dramatically here in the last half a decade or so, the amount of helium being used in that space is also increasing dramatically. It used to, be relatively limited in its scope because there wasn't a lot of activity. But companies like SpaceX, a few years ago, they launched 60 rockets annually. In 2024, they launched just under 100 rockets. In 2024, in 2025, I think they're aiming to do 160 rockets. Every one of these uses almost a half an ISO of a half a million cubic feet of helium to prepare for the launch and actually to get the launch up into space. So this is becoming a significant part of the market and an important part of the market because, of course, the demands associated with these customers are quite high. Nobody wants to have to delay a launch because the fuel doesn't show up on time, or that the oxidizer doesn't show up on time, or that the helium doesn't show up on time. So the supply chain is also quite critical. And as most people might be aware, the helium supply chain is already quite a tenuous project to begin with. So making sure that you have enough helium for these launches is also another critical role that the companies that supply it play in ensuring that these launches go off on time.